Well, good morning. It's Wednesday, February the 9th, and welcome to the shop where it's always 2 o'clock. Before I get started with my regular video, and we'll get there just in a couple of minutes, please bear with me. Last night I was browsing the internet like we all do, and I stumbled across a couple of old videos I had made back in about 2003, and they were on the steps to blueprint and balance an engine. Now, I was working with Mike and Wayne Curley. Now, they're twin brothers who ran active engines here in Mississauga area in Toronto. And at the time, I was part of the Ontario Cobra Club, and we had about 400 members, and we had about 200 cars. And I'll throw some shots up here as I'm speaking along, and you can just see some of the events that we were going to. So we did a lot of cruises, gatherings and things like that. We did a lot of charity work. To get into one of these cars, and taking them for a ride just makes their day. So we did a lot of that stuff. And Mike and Wayne were responsible for most of the engines that went into these cars. And some of my friends were running, 427 strokers, making 600-700 horsepower. And, they were monsters. As we all know, Wayne also made my engine, which is a 347 in the area of 450 horsepower. So like I said, great engine builders. Unfortunately, 7 years ago this month, we lost Wayne in a tragic snowmobile accident, and last night's video kind of brought those memories back, and just wanted to make this video as a tribute to Wayne and hoping Mike is doing well. But just a slight reminder to everybody that life is short. Make sure you enjoy your life while you can. So, as I said, if you're interested in seeing what the steps are in order to balance and blueprint all of the effort required to build one of these engines, if you want to watch an old video of me, 20 years ago, feel free to use the link. But please forgive the production values. Like I said, this is 20 years ago, right? So anyways, thanks for bearing with me during this few minutes, and let's get back to the car. So, a couple of things I'd forgotten. Number one, I forgot I had bought about 5 years ago, I bought some undercarriage lighting for the motorcycle. And the idea behind this stuff is that it can, show up in any color, red, green, blues, etc. But if you blend them all together, they become white. So you get this bright white LED. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these underneath the rear panel of the trunk. So they'll go up, they have adhesive on the back, they'll go up underneath the trunk, and they will shine down and light up the trunk. So I've got about 3 of these things, so I'm going to probably put them maybe in different areas, light the trunk up, and it's a lot better than my idea originally, which was to put a couple of LEDs in the amplifier rack. Because you know what it's like when you open the trunk and the lights are in your eyes, it makes it worse. At least these will tuck up underneath. You won't see them other than the light they give. So that's number one. Now, the second thing I'd like to talk about is all about my viewers. Thank you so much for all the ideas, but everything you're going to see from now on is everything that came from my subscribers. I didn't come out of this brain, I can tell you that. Number one, using this trim piece. Well, this trim piece originally was supposed to be used in the center of the car to hold the seat belts up so that you can get them. In my case, I've got a center console. It has accommodations for that. I didn't need these. Also, the bending of this just didn't work over there. But the funny part is they work perfectly on this side. They bend out, they move away. I think the best part of them is it not only cleans up the area here, but it also brings the belt height up. So the belt isn't down here now, it's up here. So it's going to be a lot more comfortable when you're driving the car. The belt isn't going to pull as much. Now, there was one other point. And Dawn, thank you so much for your insight. I didn't even think of this. But another reason to put this in is that it cleans the threshold out. This plastic now snaps down. It locks because it's fairly tight here. It's a friction fit. So it now holds us down. I don't have any concerns that my passengers are going to step out of the car, trip on this belt, and take a header out the door. This worked out perfectly. So again, everyone, thank you so much for all your ideas. Keep them coming. So what did I do today? Well, I've spent the last 3 hours putting the passenger side in. So now this is all done over there. It took that long because it was different. I don't know why. It should be a mirror. You would think it would be a mirror of this side. It was not. The belt location was wrong. I couldn't just do it the way I did it here. I had to move it. The control, for whatever reason, was jamming on the inside, even though I cut the exact same hole I did on this side, and yet it still bound on that side. 3 or 4 other things didn't work out well. This whole idea of this slipping in through here didn't work. Every time I would put on the windlace, this would tighten up again because it would all bind up. So I had that apart about 5 times today, but basically it's done. So that's another thing off the list. So what's next? Next is the well. Now, in convertibles, they have a cloth that goes behind the rear seat and then seals along the back window, and that's to separate the trunk from the cab. Now, that well is 2 pieces, and the reason it's 2 pieces is because you have to stitch it together yourself, custom for your car. In my case, with the split glass window, I'm going to need to accommodate for that. So I'm going to put in the 2 pieces, drop the top, and then use chalk to take the 2 pieces of fabric, bring them together at the bottom, and then mark them with some chalk so that I know where they need to be stitched together. And then I'm going to have to stitch them. And then once that's done, I can put the well in, and that will now officially separate the trunk from the cab. And then once that's in, I can put in the rear seat, and I can put in the rear seat belts and all of that. So next thing on the agenda is the well. So let's get at it. Okay, so here are the 2 pieces I mentioned for the well. Now, in fact, I don't know why they are 2 pieces. They should have been stitched together. There's no reason not to. There's no custom work required, as I thought there was, because you're just going to make it as big of a well as possible. Now, there's this top piece here, which goes on top of the rear seat. So that locks into the rear seat and then goes down into the back of the trunk. Now this piece up in here, what it's designed to do is to be screwed into the trim that runs just where the roof meets the back of the car body. And this covers it all up. So this, so the roof would be right here. This would come right up to the roof, so you won't see any of the bolts and nuts and all that stuff that I had to use to actually attach the roof to the car. So this covers it up nicely. These 2 wings obviously go where the roof comes down, and these get screwed into that same panel. So it covers everything up nicely. As far as this second piece, though, there's no reason to measure this. Literally, it just needs to be stitched onto this first piece right along here. So what we're going to do is stitch this right now like that, because when you open it up, that's where you get this, this nice reveal. Okay, so we've finished stitching the 2 pieces together. Like I said, you put them face to face, run the sewing machine along it, and that gives you that nice seam in the center. Now the other thing is, with the corner, all you do is you take it as you're sewing along. So as I'm coming along with the sewing machine, I fold this under, and that literally just gives me a straight run. So I just run this piece straight out. But then when you unfold it, you'll see it gives you that nice corner. Well, you had seen me put this in when it was in 2 pieces, so it's no surprise that it goes back in when it's 1 piece. So obviously it's all screwed in around the perimeter. We work our way down. We are stitched together now as far as the well is concerned. And then the trim piece goes back across the top here. It obviously holds the well onto the back. And it also, you notice how I didn't say well, it also then is where the boot locks in. Remember that boot that covers the roof when it's down. So it locks in on this bar as well. So we are done when it comes to the well. So I'll do a test run on the roof. Let's drop the top. Okay, released the front. Let's go inside and let's pull the switch. Now, the one thing I always notice when this is coming down is when the glass is folding here, this bunches. And what I like to do is straighten it up. Now, I know I don't have to, but, when the roof is going down and it, you're going to put it down, again, as I mentioned earlier, slowly, because it's going to be nice. The only reason you're putting the roof down is because it's a nice day. So you can take your time And what I want to do is not only get that, but then as the roof comes down, what I also like to do is straighten out the corners. So we see these corners and how they get wrinkled up. And again, this is just for the longevity of the roof. I mean, you know, anytime something folds in half like that, it's not good. So if we take this now and fold it down, you see how that's just going to now sink down into the well. Same thing happened over here. And I don't think there's anything you can do about this, but if I put the roof down, look at all those creases and seams. So again, same thing. Pull this out, push that down, and the same thing on the roof, right? You know, the glass. Well, the glass seems to be going down where it's supposed to. Let's take a look inside. There is our well. So let's continue. And now another thing. So again, you can see how the roof is twisted. If I take this now and pull it, again, we straighten this out. It gets out from this pinch point. See this pinch point coming? This was up in that pinch point, and that also is going to hurt your roof. So we do the same thing on this side. We pull it. Look at that. See, it gives a nice gap in here now. This scissor, because it's really a scissor, is not going to hurt my roof. And I think, you know, when you look at longevity, when you look at how long can the roof last, the key is if you always take your time putting it down, making sure that it's nicely folded in, you run less of a risk hurting the roof. So let's bring it down some more. There we go. All right, I think the well is stopping this. Well, that didn't go as planned. I did drop the roof, and there is no room for that glass. The glass is putting extreme pressure on this well, and it hasn't anything to do with me stitching the two pieces together. What it actually ends up being is this end here, and of course this end here, are being held by screws up where the roof meets the body of the car. So you can imagine that that is a finite distance. Well, the glass tries to come down right in the dead center of this, and these two ends, of course, are tied, so this can't go down any further. Like, that's as far as it goes down, and that's not enough room for the glass. Maybe the well is designed for a plastic rear window, but no matter how we try to slice it and dice it, I put some relief cuts in it, it is not wide enough. It needs to be wider so that it can hang lower. Well, I can't do much about that for this piece, but what I can do is I can do this. Luckily enough, I had a wonderful piece of black leather that I've had for about 20 years. This was originally what I had done the interior of my other car in until I've actually then did a color match interior. Got this piece of leather out of storage. I cut out the fabric based on the template of the original pieces just for guidance. And now what I've done, I've created the three sections. Of course, the one section here is the one that goes over the back seat, and it's already got the relief cuts in it, so that'll go over the back seat. But that piece is a lot wider than the original. And again, it's not stitched. The two side pieces that go side to side that define the width of this, I've cut that in the center so that I can make this any width I want. I can stitch this together whatever width. But now what I can do is I can take this piece, and when it goes up around the side of the car, I can leave more fabric in here, so that, or more leather in here, so this becomes a better well. It's a little deeper. I don't have to make a huge well, but I have to make it enough that the glass doesn't get crunched by it. And then, of course, the top piece, which actually then goes around the top, I've made this wider so that when these two pieces stitch together, you can see that I can create a very large well. Now, of course, I'm going to make sure it's big enough, but not too big. The other thing is this leather is just so much more malleable. It is just so soft. So unlike that plastic junk, it's going to be a lot easier for the glass to sit inside and be a lot safer because it is tempered, right? So if I twist this glass, if the glass gets caught up and twists, it's going to snap. Now, we don't want that. So next step, I'm going to use my clips, clip all these panels together, put them in, do some measurements, make sure I get a good well in there. I can use my chalk then. I'll do a chalk mark to mark where the width of the panels are, and then we can stitch this whole thing together. And then once we're done stitching this together, we can reinstall it. We can drop the roof back down, and if everything works out the way we want, we can put the rear seats and the rear seat belts in. But once again, that's another day. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button, and I'll be back in a couple of days after I've stitched this up, and let's get those seats in and let's start getting the interior together. I'll see you then.